Hello everybody, welcome back to day 3 of the Kessel Run. My name is Domirae. I am the world record holder for Star Wars Racer Revenge, the NG Plus category. NG Plus just meaning that we're going to be running through tournament mode for every track with a fully upgraded pod. And for today, we got Sebulba Episode 1 on the board. Now, the other viable pod pick for this would be Darth Maul, but Sebulba is going to be a little bit easier to play through. Just a couple quick notes before we get started. Sliding is our main speed mechanic, so you're going to see me look like I'm on ice skates the whole run. And boosting is a little bit secondary, and we're going to have a few skips to show off this run. Hopefully we can nail those. All right. Time starts on pod select, so let's get right into it. All right, run's going to be starting on the Mos Espa Open on Tatooine. You would think that this would be the easiest track just because it's the first track, but it's kind of annoying on any other pod other than Akko 9 Bar, but we do not have access to them for NG+. All right, one thing to note about these categories, especially NG+ here, is that we will not be going for any KOs. So KOs are a pretty big mechanic when it comes to the upgrade system, but we do not care about upgrades because we already have all of ours. Okay. Now that little bonk on the ground there is because Sebulba is a little bit of a big boy. Akko does not hardly ever get that bonk on the ground, which is why I say it's a little less annoying with him. Alright. We got a reasonable first slap in the books, people. Reasonable first slap. Alright, if you are anywhere near familiar with the history of this game, or maybe you've played it yourself, you might be wondering why it is that I am not spamming the boost button. Because that has historically been a very common way to play the game, is to do that number, like that. But it's reasonably not that fast on a lot of corners, right? So the biggest thing that we want the boost mechanic to do for us is we want it to actually get us around corners a little bit quicker and get us back onto a correct line and kind of accelerate us out of the corner. Because the big thing about cornering in this game, as opposed to Episode 1 Racer, the game before this, is that you do lose speed cornering in this game. Oh, get out of my way, Akko. So we want to get our speed back up as quickly as possible and get back onto our fast speeds. Alright, there we go, 136. Alright, we're going to skip right past Watto here. Move on to the second track in the game, the Soro Sub-Facility. This track has a pretty obvious gimmick, and you'll see it briefly in this track preview as I skip past it once it loads. That tube right there. It's a little bit annoying, to say the least, and pretty inconsistent. Speaking of inconsistent, this start can sometimes have the AI block you, but we made it through just fine. Flying right past the crowds here. Alright. Next obvious question on the board, why would I pick Sebulba over Darth Maul? And the answer to that question is that Maul is a very, very long pod and even wider than Sebulba is. And so he's very inconsistent for not making mistakes. And Sebulba, while a little bit slower on an IL circumstance, is a lot more consistent. And the name of the game for these long categories is always consistency. And this is going to be roughly in the ballpark of 42 to 44 minutes. World record for this, as posted on SRC currently, is a 42-minute and 10-second run by myself. And there is another person by the name of Dexter who has also gotten a 42-minute run. Other than that, it is a couple minutes down below to the most people, so. But yeah, we should be good to get relatively within that range. I don't know if you could kind of tell by the way I'm approaching those tubes, but you kind of get flung all over the place if you don't go into them with a plan, which is why I say they can be a little inconsistent and annoying to deal with, but we're making it through just fine so far. Another thing to note about this run is that it does take a large amount of preparation in order to be able to play this category without losing considerable time. And the reason for that is that any time that you get a top 3 lap or 3 lap time, it'll automatically take you to the Hall of Fame. You cannot skip going there. And that means that you're going to lose, 3 to 5 seconds in load times every single time that you're forced to go there. And so that means that you can't get a top 3 time, or you'll end up being forced into immediate time loss despite playing well. So you got to have a really solid group of top 3 times for everything and hope that you don't overperform. So that way you don't lose time by playing too well. Never good enough at pod racing to unlock these stages. I promise you could learn. The game is difficult, but it's not so difficult that you couldn't do it casually. I promise you that you could do it. Alright, Oratoru Gam. So this track is the first track that would have a skip if we had Akko 9 bar. Unfortunately, this track is exclusively an Akko 9 bar skip. Due to his insanely small pod size, he is able to slightly clip into a wall and get height from it on this section. But instead, because we're Sebulba and we don't have a choice but to play some character other than Akko, since Akko doesn't come fully upgraded, we cannot do the skip here. We just have to do that very, very difficult pillar downhill section. That was a very clean lap 1 there. I'd be quite happy with that. We're going to drift our way around these corners into lap 2. Now, the reason for the path that I'm taking here, you'll see all these branching uphill paths, is that not only are those uphill paths deceiving, they look like they would be a shorter line, but they're actually a longer line. They also have that insanely difficult section behind me that I just looked at, where it is nigh on impossible to go through at speeds that you would be able to achieve on that bottom portion by just not going there. I've never actually been able to make it through there cleanly, and I wouldn't even save time if I did, so that's why we take the bottom portion there. Another thing about Oratoru Gam is that it is a very underplayed track because of the difficulty spike when it comes to the pillars. It is very difficult to have any level of consistency on this track, and so people have tended to not play it as much, which is completely understandable. And there we go, I've made a pretty major mistake there in terms of an IL and a second one. So let's just get back to the end of this track. Oh my gosh, the ground ate me a little bit there. That's a pretty rare thing to have happen on this track, but it is possible to have happen when you play a pod that's kind of just a little big. And Sebulba does have a little bit of size to him, so we've actually managed to hit the ground there. Alright, we're going to continue moving right along into the 4th track, and the most fundamental track in the game, Watchtower Run. If you ever decide that you want to pick this game up, I would highly suggest doing ILs on Watchtower Run first. It'll give you a very simple track layout with only one truly difficult section to optimize, and allow you to kind of understand the game more readily. Alright, so this first part is the most difficult part of the track to understand. That didn't make it look too difficult there, but that wasn't even a fast way of doing it. It is just a consistent way. So. But this track is high-speed corners, very easy. It's quite like a flow state type track. It's very satisfying to play once you're invested into it, but yeah, you gotta be on your A game to get this part optimized without bonking the walls just constantly. Especially on these 3-lap situations, it's very easy to make a small mistake there and get caught up on the wall and lose multiple seconds, so we're obviously looking to avoid that. Alright, flying into the final lap here. We're on a reasonable pace, nothing insane, but we are going to catch up to our AI friends very momentarily. Here they are. That was Odie Mandrell flying at Mach 0. Get me around all of these pods. Ooh, and it looks like we're going to be passing Akko 9 bar on the final sections here. And almost a sub-minute 30, nothing bad. We finished the first part of the run. Doing pretty good on time here. Again, we're just going to menu past Wada. We don't need anything that you have to say. Alright, moving on to the Brightlands. Now, this is the first track that I'm actually going to be able to show you a proper skip on. This was not discovered by somebody who's actively a speedrunner of the community, but somebody who just has watched always Mario Kart Tool is the name of that player. This is actually a situation where we're going to use a button that sounds anti-speedrunning, which is the reset position button. So normally, if you get yourself in a little bit of a bind, you can press this button to reset your position onto a more stable part of the track. It's intended to make the game a little bit more accessible to casual players, but as you can see, we can abuse it to get our location further up on the track. So it actually just jumps us down to a later part of that loop, and we're able to save roughly 5 seconds per lap with that every time we get it. So it's a very, very nice skip. It was inconsistent at first. I did figure out how it worked better later on, which is that you want to be having the side of the pod on the wall right in front of that rock when you press the button, and it will give you the reset. Now, it is still finicky. Sometimes we miss it, so we're going to do our best here to line this up, and we got it for 2 out of 2 so far. Very good. Like I said, this is the first skip in the run, but it is also the most consistent skip in the run, so hopefully we're able to close things out later on as well and save some more time. We got Kraid and Miso just casually blocking our path a little bit there, but that just is how it is with these games. You go too fast and the AI get in your way. Going around Juan Sandwich, and let's just focus on that. Okay, there we go. A little bit of a hiccup there, but nothing crazy. Alright, let's get ourselves to the end here for a nice Brightlands 3 out of 3 skip. Very nice. Okay, next up we have the next Tatooine track, which is called the Badlands. This track is going to be a relatively large spike in difficulty compared to the tracks that we've faced so far in terms of the average corner difficulty of the track. It is by no means the most difficult track in the run, but it is certainly our first step in that direction. Let's try to squeeze through here. A little bit of a collision, nothing crazy. We are going to use the spam boost just to space up this hill with good cornering. Oh. Just sneak through this bottom of the sand crawler. Oh gosh. You do not want to do that, but we are going to get access to a little bit of a faster path since we lost our speed anyways. Normally we wouldn't take this route because we want to maintain speed, but when you lose your speed, you might as well go there. Got a little bit of a shortcut. That shortcut right there is extremely difficult to get through, especially with speed. Most of the time, if you're inexperienced at it, you're just going to smack the entrance or the walls during it, but you can get a little bit of a flow on it. Okay. Well, that wasn't the greatest first lap there for Badlands, but let's make up some time on this next lap here. Big thing here is that we just want to have a good exit from this, which we did that time. And now that we have our speed, we don't want to divert over, because that would just lose us too much time. Alright, now like I said, that you spend a lot of your time on the run sliding, but you actually do need to release slide occasionally. Now, The biggest reasons that you'd want to release slide are you need an immediate change in direction, or when you are changing direction, you maintain more speed by releasing slide than holding it. Now, there is no one-size-fits-all way of me describing to you exactly what type of corner it works best to release versus hold slide through. I tend to think of it as roughly the 90-degree or greater angles you would release slide, but it's not an exact science, and it's been a lot of trial and error to get to the point that we're at. For example, this corner, I just do a little bit of a tap release of slide, as well as on that shortcut, just to kind of change our direction and maintain a little bit more speed. Alright, get around Nair Dark, who is the slowest pod in the game. It's also, at least the only pod that I'm familiar with being a female driver, but I'm also not the most knowledgeable of Star Wars lore. Alright, relatively okay time there. We'll take that. Let's see if we can keep this up. Ballast Complex. This is probably my least favorite track in the game. It is incredibly inconsistent. It does also have a skip, but that skip is just like the track, inconsistent. It also saves very little time, so if we end up in a situation where it makes sense to go for it, then I will, but most of the time I would avoid going for it. Okay, that beginning section's a little tricky with the AI. It is very, very easy to get blocked by them. And this whole section here, you literally take wall bonks because there's no other way to keep your speed and go through that section and also get a good exit. So, you know, we have another tube on this track, as well as a jump exit from the tube that if you mess up is really bad. And then we have this uphill section that is very easy to fall from. Now, the reset button can save you if you fall off, and I will use it if I fall off, but obviously it is slower to do so. So we would prefer not to do that. Sub 51 first lap is very nice for this track. We will take that all day long, and we will take it to the bank. Ooh. That terrain there is very annoying, as you can tell. Kind of like the I think like sausage or hot dog or whatever it's called in Trackmania. That type of material where you just have a bump in there is very difficult when you're like sucked to the ground all the time anyways. All right, we've made it up the uphill twice in a row pretty cleanly. We will take that all day long. This track is one of two tracks that Ben Quadinaros has the IO world record on. He has very small pod frame, second smallest of the viable pods, as well as much better turning than Akko, so that is why he can be used sometimes. He is a bit slower on a straight line than Akko, but gets you through some of these sections just a little bit quicker. The other track that Ben is used on is the Bunta Eve Classic. Oh. See, that's that jump I was talking about. It's not very nice. Okay, let's go for the skip. Oh, we got the skip. Let's go. Lap 3, lose speed, and we got this like 2-second time save skip. Let's go. Oh my goodness. I cannot believe I actually got that. Wow. That's like a 10% chance of getting it in my experience, so to just throw it out there, we will take it. Very small time save. I mean, we made that mistake, so that kind of just brought us back on par with a full track run, but you know, well, I'm just happy to show it off. Alright, and now we go from my least favorite track to my favorite track in the game, the Ruins of Karness Gorgur. This track is incredibly difficult, but it's just as satisfying to nail everything on. It's a track that requires a lot of focus in some areas, and again, is a spike in corner difficulty from what we've been doing, especially this upcoming short here. Ooh, that was very nice. This is the only track with weather being active in the game, and it also makes me a little bit jealous when it comes to episode 1 because only the N64 has working weather for that game. So, unfortunately for me, this is my only situation. Lost focus there. Only situation that I get to have rain. I would love to have it in episode 1 on the jungle tracks, but here we are. I will take it on ruins. Now, the reason this is my favorite track in the game is because there is absolutely nothing smoother, in my experience in the game, than just going along ruins when you're playing well. It just works. All the corners flow into one another, and their fast and slow corner combination is just so satisfying. Alright, this is actually a shortcut as well. I didn't mention it the first time, but you can see it on the map. There is that farther out path. Alright. We're keeping up the pace decently here. Honestly, a pretty solid run, all things considered so far. Nothing too catastrophic yet. And we get the shortcut cleanly 3 times. Nice. That is not easy to do, even if you take conservative strats. I remember when I first played this track, when I was getting into the game, I didn't know the shortcut existed, and I was looking at the wrong track times, and I thought that I was doing good. And then I discovered that there was that shortcut, and that I was looking at the wrong times the whole time. Alright. Here we go. Through ruins. Pretty solid time. Alright. Moving right along to Siri Serrano, which is a little bit of an annoying track. It's not really a spike in difficulty, it just has some very inconsistent moments. One such moment is this first left turn, where sometimes Sebulba will get hit in the ground if you try to take too good of a line. So we're going to try to not do that. Alright, very good. This jump here is one of the few times you actually have to hit the brakes because you don't want to overshoot it. Alright. Very nice. This section is very nice when you get it, but that right there, that little pop left, is so annoying because you just lose speed for something that feels completely out of your control. And that hill right there is also very scary because you can, and I have had it numerous times happen where you get popped into the wrong part. Then you have this jump, which you have to intentionally lose speed on if you want to take a straight line, which is the most consistent way to do it. But obviously it is not supremely fast. Alright. Cool. So you may have noticed on lap 1 that I just flew right over the lava. Now, in almost every other situation that you can imagine lava being in, there's some sort of punishment associated with being around it or on it, but not in this one. This one, there is no heat, there is no speed loss, there is no damage. You just get to fly right over it like it's nothing. I have no idea if that was intentional or if they just forgot to program something onto it, but it's quite convenient for our time saving purposes. So next time you're playing the game, if you want to save a little time on this track, you can just casually ignore the intended lines there and drive straight to the exit point. Alright, very nice. Let's see if we can keep this clean here. I got pop left every single lap there. That's really unfortunate, but what are you gonna do? Okay, we've made it past one potential choking point of the track, which is that ramp I talked about being inconsistent. Very happy to be past that. Hey, there we go. 248 with Sebulba here. That's pretty nice. And that 55 last lap especially was very good. Okay, next track. This is the Grand Reefs. This is the third and final skip that I'll be showing you in the run, if I can get it. This one is pretty much a coin toss every lap, which makes doing it 3 laps in a row very, very difficult, but I would love to be able to do it at least once. We got past the dangerous open there. That's very easy to get pinned by the AI once again. Alright, this is going to be the most unique looking skip in the game from this run's perspective, so let's hope we can get it. Alright, there we go. We're in. We're going to go out of bounds onto the water, and then we're going to fly into the void until right here, and we're going to press the reset button. And we're further along on the track. This saves roughly 3 to 4 seconds. Shoot. That path is faster if you make it through cleanly, but it's very easy to make mistakes on. But obviously, we got to be a little greedy, right? What would be the fun in doing things without being a little greedy? We're speedrunners after all. Alright, this ending section is very bad for frames. For some reason, they added a section to the game where you just lose all of them despite doing nothing. I don't know what they were thinking when they did that, and they decided not to change it, but here we are. Alright, let's go ahead and get this lined up again. Alright, see, that's what can happen there. So we're going to divert to the full track because there's no recovering it, unfortunately. But at least we did get it on lap 1, and we still have a lap 3 attempt to go, so we still have the potential for a 2 out of 3. This track is very, very easy to lose a bunch of time on, and I have had it happen on quite good runs. You just get sucked into this kind of like trap that the game leads you into believing that you're gonna be fast or consistent because it goes well a couple times. Then you end up doing this number where, as you could tell by the number of mistakes I've made, that this track is very difficult. So this is not going to be our proudest time of the run, but hopefully if we have at least a good enough last lap, it won't be a disaster. Hopefully we can get the skip here. We can get a 2 out of 3. That is a pretty good outcome. Yeah, there we go. 2 out of 3. We'll take that. So this will bring us back some of our time that we just lost on that lap 2. And we just gotta play a really good lap 3 and we'll actually be on a decent pace here. Not an amazing pace, but a decent one. Okay, let's get through here cleanly for once. Oh my gosh, I bonked every lap. That's unfortunate. Ah well. It happens. Ending, last bits. That's not terrible. We will take a 313 there every day. It is not amazing, but that's what you get on that track. It's just inconsistent. It's one of the biggest time swings in the entire run. Very easy to lose 20, 30 seconds even, which sounds absurd, but you just can make so many mistakes on that track. Alright, Citadel. This is the last of the Jungle Gorgul tracks. It's, again, another really difficult track. This ending is an extremely difficult ending. It just pits all of the hardest tracks at the end, which makes sense from a construction of the game tournaments mode standpoint, but makes a very difficult run. I'm gonna go across the water, a little bit of a shortcut here. Now this part is the main reason why this track is so difficult, is because managing your speed around the number of hairpins that this section has without accidentally bonking on something takes a lot of work. Get it through here. Alright. We're gonna cut straight to our exit point here and just go up to the ending of the lap. Reasonable first lap time. Alright. Hopefully we can just keep this clean. Get a proper ending to this run going. Yeah, this is another one of those tracks where it's difficult for me to play cleanly and manage dialogue, so I apologize if there are some longer moments of silence than normal here. I just want to make sure I don't make any major mistakes because this track is very easy to do that on. All right. Ah, no. All right, here's the Hall of Fame time loss that I was talking about. Ah, dang it, dude. That's world record that I just got there. Gosh darn it. Whoops. Well, I guess that means I need to play that track more. That's unbelievable. IL world record in an NG plus run on stream. You won't see that every day, folks. You won't see that every day. Alright, we're gonna cut to the left here. This is another annoying AI pattern. This and the last track in the game are very infamous casually because they have the two most difficult fast lap records to beat, which is something that you need in order to unlock one of the characters. Is it Vader? I don't remember which character it is. Again, I'm not the best at that. Ah, shoot. Okay, so this is the... You're gonna see two different routes here, unintentionally, because I just went into habit mode. This is the old route. It's maybe like 2/10, 1/10 slower than the new route. That's how we've classically done that section, but there was a forked path that you'll see me take on laps 2 and 3, since I'm no longer going to forget. But yeah, this is a very infamous track because of the difficulty of getting the fast lap time. It's the fast lap that they want you to get is only about 11 seconds slower than the current fast lap world record, which sounds like a lot, but when you don't know the mechanics behind sliding in the game, it's actually very difficult to fit within that margin as a casual player. And the other one that's super difficult is going to be our last track, which is the Bunta Classic. Alright, let's take the correct route this time, which is to divert to the right here. Now this is a longer line, but you maintain more speed. So you pop out of here, and you're actually going to be about a tenth or two ahead compared to the old route. I just recently changed it, so it's been kind of an adjustment for me to get used to. It's one of the few full track route developments that's actually happened since I've joined the game, so it's very easy for me to forget. Okay, now the ending of this track, like all this section here, is actually really difficult to get through without bonking the ceiling of all things, because they have those rock columns that are kind of like fallen over looking, and you can bonk the top of your pod on those, which is just so absurd to me that they would even like make something that tight of a gap. But that's this game for you. There's no mercy to be had. We are pod racing after all, right? Had to change my slide pattern there. I was a little bit off tilt. Alright. See? Look at that. Look at that. I just bonked the frickin' ceiling, man. What is that? Alright, 3 out of 6 is very reasonable, though. Worth the time loss. Perhaps that's true, B-Mac. Perhaps that's true. When it came to the Citadel time. Alright, let's close this out strong, people. This is the Bunta Eve Classic. Probably the most difficult track in the game. At the lowest, second most difficult track in the game. And, of course, this is the track in the movie, but altered somewhat. And you know how it is, they can't exactly have an incredibly long... Oh my gosh, I can't believe I saved that. Alright, we're gonna take this path here. It's a little bit obfuscated by rocks telling you to go a different direction. Ah. Okay, I'm going to try to close this out strong, so I'm gonna do my best to not talk too much here. The track is very difficult, and I prefer to keep that type of bonking time loss to a minimum, so the margins are very razor thin on this track. Okay. That entire canyon section is super difficult. Okay. So we lost about 5.5, 6 seconds to the number of mistakes combined that I did on that lap one, so that's why I said I wanted to kind of clutch up a little bit more, focus a little bit more, because I can't do that to you guys. This is a pretty good run. I'd like to close it out strong. Feels very fitting to have a run like this end on Sebulba on Bunta Classic, does it not? Okay, that's nothing too crazy. It's a lot more reasonable second lap. Nothing too major, just that tiny little mistake at the end there. Which on this track, having only one small mistake in the lap at the end of a run like this is quite nice. We'll take it. Okay, that was not great. Nothing major though. Okay, we made it up the service ramp every lap, which is something that's very easy to miss. Not that I've even talked about it yet, but this track just kind of throws one difficult thing after another at you, so it's kind of annoying to try to mention all of them because they fly past by the time I could even finish a sentence about them. Alright. We're almost there, people. We are almost there. The timer will end when we get to the credits. Keep in mind that the current world record is a 42:10, so we're gonna find out what pace we're on when we get there. Hopefully I could have put something nice together for you guys today. Ah! Okay. Okay. Come on. Let's get to those credits. This could be pretty major, people. Woo! Oh my gosh, low 41? What is that? Holy goodness. Wow. That's major right there, people. That's almost a sub 41. Crazy. That's crazy. What? That's oh goodness. I appreciate you guys being here for that one. That was a good time. I was happy to be able to show off an actual record. That's the fastest anybody's ever completed the tournament mode of any kind. 41:15. So that's epic. Be able to show that off in the Kessel Run. Thanks to everybody who's had me for this part. You will see me again later tonight for Star Wars Episode 1 Racers. So I'm going to be doing a second bout of pod racing, and that one will be an even crazier run. Much more skips, much faster pace, and a game that I've played a lot more of. So I hope I'll see you then. Thanks again, everybody, and it's been fun.